please.
Well, thank you very much, Vishal, and thank you, organizing committee, for this wonderful opportunity to be a part of our proceedings yet again. So, as has already been introduced, I'm going to give the nephrologist perspective um, um, when it comes to management of heart failure in a patient with chronic kidney disease. Well, my task has been made quite easy by the previous two speakers, Dr. Vinoy and Vanita, and quite a lot of repetition, of course, can be expected as I move on. Well, to recapitulate what we already know, heart failure and kidney disease, we all know coexist. Cardiorenal syndrome was coined. But to give you some more insight about the statistics, 50 to 65% of heart failure patients present with values of EGFR less than 60. That means they are in the CKD stage 3. And 20 to 30% of AKI patients during treatment for heart failure. So that's the kind of commonality between the two. Well, 44% of patients with end-stage kidney disease have heart failure. And we know what the reasons are. Typically, we can find the reason in the enhanced sympathetic nervous system activity and the activation of the RAS system, which actually creates trouble for both the heart function as well as the kidney function as well. Well, it's equally important to note that the risk of heart failure increases with the worsening of the renal function. As you can see here, CKD was prevalent to the tune of about 40%, be it heart failure with reduced ejection fraction or with preserved ejection fraction. And then if you move on from the relatively no CKD in a given patient to CKD stage 4 and 5, look at where the incidence of heart failure goes. Well, we heard Dr. Vinoy talk about the various cardiac biomarkers, but it's equally important to note that many of these have renal clearance, and the time-tested NT-proBNP and few others lose their meaning when it comes to a given patient with advanced chronic kidney disease. So with this background, let's try and see how typically a nephrologist would be wanting to manage a patient with heart failure, irrespective of the stage of chronic kidney disease. When we talk of the goals of treatment, of course, we have to improve the clinical status and the functional capacity of the patient. But equally important is not to allow the patient come back to the hospital because they are prone to repeated hospitalization. And of course, the final thing is to find ways to reduce the mortality in these patients. We know a lot about what RAS blockers have done to these patients over the years, but certainly I'm sure you'll all agree we need something more when it comes to their overall survival. And we need to look beyond the time-tested RAS blockers, beta blockers, and come on to the newer agents which are now available. Talking first about RAS blockers, the major breakthrough which could be made over the last 3 decades, ever since they were available, and they have been shown to reduce mortality and morbidity in patients with HFrEF. The ACE inhibitors are also recommended in patients with asymptomatic left ventricular systolic dysfunction, and that's typical to reduce the risk of heart failure development as well as hospitalization and mortality. When you look at the various trials associated with ACE inhibitors, as you can see, the overall outcome, of course, was quite promising. But when it comes to their efficacy in patients with CKD, either there was no mortality benefit or this kind of analysis was not analyzed. And of course, the perpetual problem of worsening the physiological decline in the GFR and the risk of hyperkalemia when you are wanting to use ACE inhibitors. Well, interesting to note that few reports showed that the use of RAS blockers actually was demonstrated to increase the risk of mortality in patients with HFrEF who had worsening renal function after the introduction of RAS blockers. So it's like a samsara, as you say, the life and death cycle. You give RAS blockers, you can create trouble. If you stop them, the creatinine may actually decrease, but the patient keeps on deteriorating clinically, and you can expect more and more adverse outcomes. And finally, you can lose such a patient. So that's when I said we needed to look beyond just RAS blockers. And that's when we came across ARNI in the last about 6 or 7 years and look at what kind of promising results ARNI has shown. Well, if you look at the reduction in the incidence of worsening of renal function, um, there was definitely benefits with ARNI. Well, if you look at the overall, the data which was shown by Dr. Vanitha as well, you can see the kind of promising results one can expect when one has initiated therapy with ARNI in patients with HFrEF, especially when they also had a meaningful CKD. That's the stage 3 onwards, GFR less than 60. Well, ARNI was shown to reduce cardiovascular deaths or an unplanned hospitalization for heart failure in patients with not just CKD stage 1 to 3. As you can see, there was 14% reduction, but even in more advanced CKD stages 4 and 5, there was actually 28% reduction. And mind you, we have been very, very wary and careful about using ARNI in patients with more advanced CKD. So that's why I would agree when Dr. Vanitha also referred to this. Direct to ARNI approach has been recommended by ACC 2021 guidelines. Well, after having this kind of optimism about ARNI, let's not forget the time-tested beta blockers. Beta blockers in heart failure have always been associated with some kind of controversy, but then we have realized they are great molecules to use. And we have had very important trials such as the US Carvedilol heart failure study, the MERIT, the CBIS, Copernicus and Capricorn. All of these showed significant benefits with beta blocker. But somehow, I'm sure you will all agree, then when it comes to the usage of beta blockers in patients with more advanced CKD, I think we have been unfair to beta blockers. Even though we know there is a very strong evidence of sympathetic overactivity, yet, I don't know, for reasons best known to all of us, we have not been, as I said, fair to beta blockers. And I'm sure with more and more availability of robust data, we will go back to beta blockers. And I'll, towards the end, say as to why, because they have the strongest among the rivals available as to have the evidence in heart failure. Well, a lot of optimism about mineralocorticoid aldosterone receptor antagonists. But the problem, as you all know, even though there has been data that they have been associated with reduced mortality, at least in the univariate analysis, but the problem always have been the risk of hyperkalemia. And that's the reason why we have been little scared of using mineralocorticoid receptor antagonists over and above RAS blockers, especially in a patient who is a diabetic, maybe having type 14 tubular acidosis. So all these things leading on to the typical setting of hyperkalemia. But there has been some optimism with the availability of finerenone and the Fidelio DKD investigator trial, where they have shown that the risk of hyperkalemia may actually not be a big cause of concern as compared to the earlier available spironolactone and eplerenone. Well, diuretics we have already talked about. There are very effective drugs, especially when it comes to the management of fluid retention and congestion. But remember, they have not been shown to offer any short or long-term mortality benefits. So they, of course, are required because they give a lot of palliation, they alleviate the symptoms, yet we have to accept the fact that they may not be offering long-term mortality benefits. If we have to use them, of course, we are going to rely on loop diuretics, and like Dr. George described, a torsemide may be a preferred outcome. Now, this is going to be a bit of repetition, whether intermittent or continuous. There has, in the large studies, no difference in the effect or in increase in creatinine, whether you used a standard dose or a continuous or a bolus. Similarly, when you used a high dose diuretics or a low dose diuretics, again, there was no significant difference in the primary endpoint. However, there is more and more trend these days towards intermittent therapy rather than bolus therapy rather than continuous infusion. When it comes to ultrafiltration, again, so many times we have to resort to take the help of extracorporeal therapies to achieve ultrafiltration in our patient who do not seem to be responding to diuretics for whatever reasons. And this is when we need to know whether the ultrafiltration really helps or not. Well, there are few trials which showed maybe they are beneficial, but majority of the trials have shown that the stepped up pharmacological therapy algorithm was actually superior to ultrafiltration because there was a significant difference of adverse events between this when you compared it with ultrafiltration, 37% versus 52% in favor of stepped approach with diuretics rather than ultrafiltration. As you can see here, in both CARES heart failure and avoid heart failure trial, there were higher serious adverse events when you had resorted to ultrafiltration. So, well, what you need to remember is there could be a rapid weight loss with isolated ultrafiltration, but it comes at the cost of higher incidence of renal dysfunction. So with this, let's move on and talk about something which we all have been very, very excited about in the last, again, 5 or 6 years. Ever since the availability, there was the availability of EMPA-REG trial data. But we all know that the earlier on trials, be it EMPA-REG, CANVAS, DECLARE-TIMI, were all dedicated cardiovascular outcome trials, and it was only as an afterthought to know whether they help patients with more advanced CKD or not. It's only with the the Credence trial data availability that we know that SGLT2 inhibitors, CANA in this case, was efficacious even in patients with more advanced CKD. And when you looked at the cardiovascular outcome trials, they were quite impressive. And this has reinforced our faith in the SGLT2 inhibitors. In fact, after Credence, there was a relook at the EMPA-REG, the Credence-like EMPA-REG cohort, and they found the results were as impressive there as well. And then finally, we have tried to lower the bar. With DAPA-CKD, we have gone down to see what happens when the patient has a GFR as low as 25. And there again, as you can see, the hazard ratio with cardiovascular death or hospitalization due to heart failure was quite impressive, and 29% relative risk reduction. And of course, we all know that DAPA-CKD had shown an all-cause mortality relative risk reduction to the tune of 31%. Well, based on what we have seen with SGLT2 inhibitors over the last few years, ACC 2021 again says that you have a reason good enough to employ SGLT2 inhibitors in your patients with heart failure, even in patients with more and more advanced chronic kidney disease. But to summarize, let's try and see what is the strength of evidence when we are wanting to treat heart failure in patients according to the stage of CKD. Well, when it comes to the earlier stages, stage 1 or stage 2, there are many weapons in your armamentarium which have a strong evidence: RAS blockers, beta blockers, MRAs, and the cardiac devices. For the paucity of time, haven't talked much about the IC device. They have their definite place. But then talking about the drug management, as you move on from early stages of CKD to more advanced, as you can see here, especially in the more advanced CKD stage 4 and 5, there is hardly any drug which has a strong evidence. It's only, I think, the data which is going to be available both with ARNI as well as SGLT2 inhibitors, which we'll have in the coming few years, which will throw light whether we can expect any meaningful outcomes when we employ these two class of agents as well. But so far, there is no drug which has a strong evidence when it comes to treatment of heart failure in a patient with more advanced chronic kidney disease stage, especially stage 4 and 5. So my take-home message today would be heart failure is an important cause of morbidity and mortality in our patients of CKD, and we must always address this early in the course of the disease. Never believe that there is an entity called a stable heart failure. Otherwise, you would have missed the bus. RAS blockers, ARNI, beta blockers, finerenone may have a role, and of course, whole impressive data with SGLT2 inhibitors in the recent times are our important therapeutic tools to help us treat patients with heart failure in various stages of chronic kidney disease. However, no agent as of today has shown a strong level of evidence of efficacy in CKD stage 4 and 5. Diuretics and vasodilators are helpful in taking care of the symptoms, but they do not really have shown a long-term mortality deficit, benefits. Well, the devices are helpful in selective cases, but then we need to have more data in our CKD population. Thank you very much.